Hey John, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come down here for the interview. I understand you're a busy man, you've got a lot going on, so I appreciate your time to do this interview. So basically today I just wanted to talk a little bit about both your judo journey as well as your police journey and some of the wisdom you've picked up along the way, some of the guidance points you've picked up along the way that you can share to others. So I guess the first question would be, where did it all start as far as your judo and stuff is concerned?
Okay, so I started judo when I was 11. I'm now 53, so 42 years of doing judo. And my parents tried to get me into some form of martial art because I was in fights all the time.
Yeah.
So I grew up in state housing next to the Black Power in Rotorua. Yeah. And at that particular time, if you weren't looking at your shoes when you walked to school, you got in a fight. And I was reluctant to continually look at my shoes all the time, and so I was always in fights. And so my parents looked for something. We tried several different martial arts, but the one I keep levitating back towards was judo, because I liked the fact that people don't get hurt and there was respect. I think the thing that drew me to judo was whatever you learnt you could do, so you didn't have to hold back. And I liked the fact that at the end of the day, nobody really got hurt. So it's a punishing sport, there's no doubting that, and albeit that judo means the gentle way. In competition, there's nothing gentle about it, it's tough. You know, things that are easy, I don't think they have the same value, the same growth for a person.
Yep, yeah, totally. So you found that not only the physicality of the sport drew you to it, but also the etiquette surrounding it,
yep.
And the fact that there were morals and principles that you had to follow, you had respect for your opponent, and although you were trying to win in a fight, it wasn't, you know, there was no disrespect towards whether your adversary.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, even in the training environment, we bow to each other, which is a sign of respect.
Yep.
I've found invariably in almost every fight I've ever had, I've had some tough competitors in my lifetime, there is mutual respect, win, lose or draw at the end of it. Nice. And that's something that I love about judo. We can be pretty bruising on one another and pretty hard, but really it's a journey of self-discovery. It's about learning about ourselves and putting ourselves in positions of discomfort, yep, so that we can grow. Yep. And I think that's what I take from it. And the fact that it gives you the ability to feed back and into your later years. So this last year I went to Japan, and Rick Littlewood and I were over there with the New Zealand team competing. He's 73, our first ever Olympian at the Munich Olympics, 73, still competing. And I just look at that and I'm in awe of it, and still giving back to the sport. And then, you know, the hundreds or thousands of people worldwide that their competitive careers are over, but they still give their time and expertise to help the next generations coming through.
Totally. Yeah. And you first competed overseas internationally when you were 14.
Yeah.
Have you always had the desire to kind of do the best? Like if you pick something that you want to be doing, do you always have the drive to be the best you can be at that chosen thing?
Yeah. I think to be a competitor in any sport and to get to any form of elite sort of standard, you have to be willing to self-sacrifice. When other people are out partying, you're training. You know, when people are drinking, you're not. You're watching what you do, and particularly in a sport, a fighting sport, most fighting sports have a weight division, so you have to make weight. But you want to be as close to the maximum weight that you can be, but as lean as you can be. So, yeah, there's lots and lots of sacrifices for every athlete, but the sacrifices in judo, I can't train unless I have other bodies to train with. So it's a unique sport in that regard, in that I give my body to others so that they can learn and perfect their techniques, and likewise they do the same for me. And it's actually, you know, to find a good uke, which is the person that you're throwing, isn't easy, because some people are very defensive through fear of being thrown and all those kinds of things. And so this mutual respect and willingness to assist each other in our growth and development is quite a unique thing.
Yep, totally. And as well as your judo, you're also serving in the police for 22 years.
Yes.
What was your what made you decide to join the police force?
At that time, I had a young family, and I really wanted to serve my community, and I wanted to give something back. And I like the idea of protecting those people that aren't able to protect themselves.
Yep.
And I wanted to buy into something bigger than myself. It's easy to be selfish, and as a sports person, you have to be. So I suppose in my mind, it was an opportunity to give back on a bigger level.
Yeah, totally.
And the police, I was in the police for 22 years and doing shift work and on call for 20 of those years. So it took a lot out of me, and it was a sacrifice I made for my sport, really, I suppose, is that I took on more of a mantle as a coach and sort of gave away a lot of my competitive side of judo.
Yeah, yep. And did you find some of the things you were exposed to in the police force helped you mentally as well? Like, I guess mental toughness is a big part of sport, so did you find your occupation help with that?
Yeah, you're constantly challenged
Yeah.
in the police, and who you think you are, you'll find that that's not who you are. And the same in judo, like we fight our demons of fear. Fear is debilitating. We all feel it. As a police officer, when everybody else is running away from a problem, we have to run to it. There's been instances where I've nearly been killed. I've had friends killed in the police. Many people have a view of the police which isn't the reality. The police are just men and women, brothers and sisters, husband and wives, parents, that one day put a blue uniform on and then have to go out there and wrestle with the bad guy. Yeah. And there's something extremely honourable about that. And if I take it back to the judo, I get that same feeling from, there's an honour through the respect. And policing, every day that I would go on a night shift, I would always in my mind pray that I would be courageous, that I wouldn't take a backward step, that I'd be wise, that I'd make good decisions so that I wasn't put at risk and I didn't put anybody else at risk. And I didn't want those fears to prevent me from doing what I had to do. Yep. And so being put into a position of discomfort all the time, you can't help but grow.
Yeah. It's funny because you obviously started off in the beginning, a lot of the things that were surrounding you during your childhood, you could have easily gone the complete other way, with gangs and that kind of stuff. But instead, whether it was your parents' influence or something within you, you decided to go the complete opposite side and help those that couldn't help themselves. Yeah,
I think some people are born with that. So I had that from a little boy, like if someone was being picked on, I couldn't just turn a blind eye and walk away from it. Yeah. And I think we all know people like that. Yeah. And other people, they might want to help, but their fear of doing so is just too great and they can't overcome it. Yeah. And so I suppose the challenge for me, is there was one time in my life I got quite ill and my wife could beat me in an arm wrestle. Yeah. And I felt some real fear. It was quite uncanny because up until that time I always backed myself that I could do what I had to do to survive, in a fight. And then I realised I couldn't. Yeah. And it gave me an inkling into how, a vast quantity of the people within our community feel. Yeah. That they, through illness and age, can't protect themselves. Yeah. So for me, it was an honourable thing to do. It doesn't mean I'm an honourable person. I try to be the best person I am, but obviously make mistakes on a daily basis.
Yeah. And during your police career, would you say fear was the number one challenge during your occupation? Like having to overcome it, having to put on the uniform every day, not knowing what could happen, what you could be faced with?
Yeah. And I can say that often when I was going to an incident, which let's say an armed incident, involving gang members. As you were driving, blue lights and siren going, and often directing other younger staff and more inexperienced. It's interesting what your mind goes through, and it'll sound real corny, but in my mind, I imagine myself being a lion, because a lion doesn't even know what fear is. Yeah. They walk through the jungle. They're not looking. They're not afraid. Some animals are afraid because there's all these predators. But the lion doesn't even understand what a predator is, and so
completely erasing that emotion, basically.
And I try to do that when I'm fearful in my judo, when I'm in preparation. I flick a switch in my brain, and I try to become that lion the best I can.
Yep.
and take away the fear, because the fear just consumes people.
Yep. Yep. So your judo career, you started off when you were younger, you're competing on the international stage, doing quite well for yourself. Then you had your police career and your family, and you kind of moved into more of a coaching role. But you're now out of the police for 3 years.
Yes.
And coming out of the other side, I guess you've got less responsibility with all your kids growing up. In what regard has judo been different as an older athlete, and have you approached the sport differently?
Well, probably the biggest thing is you have to drop your ego.
Yeah.
And most top athletes have an ego. They have to be self-centered and selfish to be able to become the athletes that they are. And as you get older, you realise there's limitations. You don't recover as fast, and there's all kinds of difficulties. And I carry injuries, and probably most people my age do, particularly people that have competed at any kind of a reasonable level in a contact sport. So, being sensible, being smart about what I do and how I train has been really important. And that's where our chance meeting came into play, and I can honestly, with my hand on my heart, say that I didn't actually think that you were going to be able to provide me with something that I hadn't heard before, but you did. And it was at the right time. So sometimes people can hear a message, but it's not the right time, and they can hear the same message a year later, 2 years or 10 years later, and it's the right time and they get it. And so some of the things that you and I have been trialling, the proof's in the pudding. I said I didn't need more strength, I needed agility, speed, explosiveness, because those are the areas that I was failing on the international market, particularly in the European circuit. And so we've been developing that, and it's starting to show, and I think there's still lots of room for improvement within the body. But for older athletes, it's not over. You just have to be sensible about how you train and how you go about preparing for competition. And you don't have to give it away. I mean, my real focus in life today is not to be a spectator. I want to be a participant.
So even though for a lot of older athletes, or even just everyday people, age shouldn't be a number, and the fact that you're 53 and you're still, a couple of weeks ago you won 2 golds on the international stage at the Oceania Judo Champs. The fact that you can do that, you can still train, and you've got a few injuries yourself, so just making those adaptations to training has allowed you to keep going. But I guess the message is that despite your age, you can still adapt to different trainings, and continue.
I think for any person that wants to better themselves, the first step is just making that first step. So if it's a gym where you want to go to or need to go to be able to attain your goals, well, take the step and walk through the door. I say to older athletes and children, the fact that they turn up for a competition, so they entered, then they weigh in and make weight, then they put their gi on, and then they put their foot on the mat, they're the heroes, because there's thousands of people that could have done that, but they allowed their fears and their excuses to prevent them from doing it. And we have a saying in my club in Nelson, is there is no losing, and this is not some PC thing, okay, to make everybody a winner. It's got nothing to do with that. There's no losing, there's winning and learning. So when we are deprived of the opportunity to win, we get a better gift in the ability to learn about ourselves and adapt, and it's actually a gift.
I guess you're only really losing if you don't learn anything from what you just did.
Yeah, exactly.
And moving forward, so from this day onwards, over the next few years, what can you kind of see in the future as far as your judo and your training goes? Well,
the other reason I sort of got involved back into competition on a serious note was because my children all grown up and moved on. I've left the police. I've got more regular hours. I can train better. We met. I've got a great club here in the Wellington Judo Academy, and my home club in Nelson is so supportive. And I thought, why not? Because there's going to come a time when this body won't give me the option. So I don't want to wait until and then be one of those people I could have been, I would have been, I should have been, a gunner. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I want to just take away the excuses in my life, because I can post up excuses like the best of them, And as you know, I printed a t-shirt that says no on the front and excuses on the back, and that's for me.
Yeah.
So I just want to, my goal is to try and medal at the World Championships.
Yep.
I've been to one, that was last year. It was a good eye-opener. I know what I need to do. I know where I need to improve. The OJUs was a good stepping stone to that, but I'm under no illusions.
Yep.
There's some very good players in New Zealand that will challenge me, and there's players that can beat me. And so I need to work harder, or as hard as I can possibly work without breaking the body down,
yep.
and come in stronger, faster, more supple,
yep.
More determined than I ever have been to try and get there. And just because I'm older, so what?
Yeah.
We all need goals in our lives, otherwise we're waiting to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that living or existing, eh? A lot of people just coast through life and exist, and it's the ones like yourselves that are actually, seizing the day and taking every opportunity to better yourself and actually experiencing life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Did you have any final words or messages you wanted to get across?
Just on a personal note, I really wanted to thank you, Jordan, because some of the stuff that we've been doing, I honestly didn't think that my body would cope with it, and it's coped with it extremely well. And the friendship that we've developed and the expertise that you've given me. And sometimes it's just somebody being honest with you. And there's been a couple of times you've come up to me and said, "Why are you here?" You're like, "Go home. You're overtraining." And that's gold. And I think honesty is what people need sometimes more than anything else. But it's come from a constructive perspective, not a destructive.
Yep.
And that's the difference. So you're trying to build me up, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for your input.
Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, thank you for, again, taking your time out to do this interview. And I hope that for the viewers and stuff that you've got something out of what John here has had to say. And I think the key messages being that no matter how old you are, no matter what injuries or anything that's going on in your life, you can either have reasons or excuses. You can make both of them. And I think making the reasons and taking every moment to better yourself and strive to be your best is the way to go.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, John.
Thanks. Thanks, Jordan.
Hey, Hugo, it's good of you to take your time out of your day to both do the fighting with John and also for the interview and that kind of thing. So just a bit about yourself. You started Judo when you were 6 years old. What kind of drew you to the sport?
Well, it's really my mum that pushed me into it.
Yeah.
I was quite a hyperactive kind of kid and, getting into a little bit of trouble, just a 6-year-old kind of trouble, nothing too bad. But my mum wanted me to get a bit of discipline and do a martial art that, wouldn't have me punching other kids off their chairs and stuff like that. So, yeah, just a bit of discipline in my life and a few friends.
Channel all your energy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And when did you first start really getting competitive with your Judo? Was it from the age of 6 or further down the track?
Sort of had a few competitive periods, but I started competing when I was 8, and I was not the world's greatest Judo player. I'm still not, but I guess I started winning more tournaments and stuff around sort of 10 or 11. Then sort of first gone to the national team when I was about 15, so got my first national medal around the same age. I sort of started taking it more seriously around 10, I'd say, and since then I've had a few successes and failures along the way.
Part of the ride, eh?
Yeah.
And like on a Sunday night, most people would be, enjoying their afternoon or evening, but you're in here doing the work with your Judo and stuff. So I'd say you seem like quite a driven individual, and is that because you want the success for yourself as well, or you just kind of honing in on, trying to better yourself?
To be honest with you, in the past, I've sort of fallen off in terms of focus a bit. So I've had periods, particularly when I was younger, where my coach here, Cameron Clark, would train with me literally every day, sometimes twice a day or even 3 times a day. We'd be doing Judo. And at that period I was super motivated, super driven. I'd never go to parties. My friends were always annoyed at me because I was always doing Judo, always laser focused, But as you get older, you sort of think, what was I missing out on sometimes, and you want to, have the parties and stuff like that. And I think actually, funnily enough, meeting John and also meeting Mr. Calvin Bradford, who's been helping us coach as well. Sort of gave me a bit of a nudge towards trying to see if I could have a stab at being a bit more successful competitively again. And being a bit more focused and
Yeah.
staying on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So yeah, I've him to thank for them to thank for being good role models in my life, and of course my coach Cameron Clark. So.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. And you and John do a bit of randori and stuff at the club. And from my understanding, John really appreciates yourself being able to give him really good competition, because he's describing you as powerful, fast, and if he does well against you, he thinks that if it's kind of a good mark to see that he'll probably do well against other people his age. So I think he does really appreciate that relationship that you two have, both on the mat and off the mat. And just doing the randori, can you kind of describe that a little bit, your relationship with John and your training and that kind of thing?
We have a good relationship, on and off the mat. He's a bit of a mentor to me in both regards. Yeah, on the mat we train pretty hard. Despite his age, I treat him like an equal, because he sort of competes with me like an equal. So, funnily enough, when I first met John, I thought, who's this old man? I'll go easy on him, because I didn't know who he was, to be honest with you. And next minute I was being launched through the air, and it happened a few more times. So I sort of took the time to say, who are you? What's your competitive background? And I realised he was quite a good player and had been for quite a long time. But we forged a friendship, and the way I see it, training with him and training with my coach Cameron Clark and my coach Calvin Bradford, is those older guys. They're like the engines, and we're like the young sports cars. The exterior, the nice body, but it's no good without an engine. And those guys are the engines, because they don't have the turbo chargers and all that anymore, and the nice hubs and all that junk. But what they do have is the years of technical experience. So with John, I learn a lot from him technically, and he learns a lot from, I guess, the physicality that I have to bring to the table. So he gets to know where he stacks up physically, and I get to help try and fill some of those gaps in my technical knowledge. So.
I guess it's great, in Judo there seems to be this mutual respect between kind of the older guys and the newer guys coming through as well. There's no clashing of interests or anything, you're all there to help each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people lose track of that as they get older. A lot of people, particularly if they have any sort of success, they start to forget that Judo is a hugely popular sport internationally, and forget sort of who was there for them along the journey. John himself's very humble, and obviously here we have a good strong club culture, and we try to stay humble, and when we have those successes we try to remember who was pushing us along the whole way. So particularly when you've got the new guys coming through the door, whether you're a lower grade or an international medalist or whatever, you kind of have to remember that once upon a time it was you walking through the door. And if you don't keep that in mind, then it actually starts to hurt your judo. You struggle to maintain those relationships that help to push you further.
Totally. And for yourself, Hugo, for the next year or so, where can you see yourself heading with your judo?
I had a point where I was quite negative with it in terms of my expectations. I sort of was making a lot of, what Joe was talking about earlier, making a lot of excuses rather than reasons. So I sort of thought, I'm waning a bit here, I'm getting too old and I've got too many injuries, which is a bit farcical. So we were just talking about, Mr. John Maxwell before, who's 53, I'm 25. But I think, I'm not sure what will happen in the future. I'd definitely like to make a few more Oceania teams, and I think the input that I've had in the last year or two would probably put me in a good position to take a medal. I'd love to get an Oceania medal or even an Oceania title. I'd love to make another World Cup team. That would be fantastic.
Totally.
And sort of really do New Zealand proud. And like John said, I mean, it would be great one day to make a Commonwealth team maybe. I'm not sure how realistic that will be, considering the next one is going to be 4 years away if judo is even an event. But my goals are just to keep training hard and picking up the level here, doing my part here, and seeing where it takes me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you have any last words for, I guess, people your age, your kind of current, you're probably at the pinnacle or reaching the pinnacle of your physical, self. So are there any words from your perspective on, what people should be taking away, what people should be doing? Yeah.
I would say just keep the big picture in mind. So a lot of people, they want to run before they can walk. So they're in the gym, they're trying to do the world championships, they're trying to do this.
Yeah.
And it's sort of death by 1,000 cuts. You don't want to leap from winning a New Zealand championships to going into the world champs or something like that. Take baby steps, measure your progress, and at each step, if you do win the title or whatever, then move on to the next obstacle in your journey. And just don't let any excuses get in your way. If you have to, tell people no, push people out of your life, whatever. Make sure you've got the right encouraging people around you. You've got good moral people in your life to guide you, and that you're, as John said, that you're making reasons, not excuses. And
Awesome.
and also don't be afraid to strive for it. I've seen a lot of people who were potential world beaters leave the sport because they either get bored or because they're not motivated or they're lazy. And I've seen a lot of people who aren't, to be brutally honest, that aren't that talented do really well because they train harder than everyone else. They've put more time in, they've talked to the right people, and they've had either a lot of success or a lot of success for their level of talent. So
it's always knowing why you're doing the sport, and if you have that and intrinsic motivation, then that's going to carry you all the way. Yeah,
just set your personal goals, be realistic about your level, and just go for it.
Awesome. I appreciate your time, Hugo.
Thanks very much.